So my name is Ophelia. I work here at Ground Cooperative as their marketing and event coordinator, or zero waste event coordinator. And thank you guys for coming to our May Day event. We're here to talk about co-ops, and we're going to do quick intros with our three panelists here. So for the intro, obviously state your name, what you do at the co-op, and also how is your co-op structured?
Hello everyone, my name is Reagan McGuire. I work at All Rise. We're a law firm in Oklahoma City and a legal co-op. My firm is structured as we have a board and we call ourselves patrons, worker patrons and founding patrons. I joined the firm about 7 months ago in October, so I'm one of the most recent to join, and I'm just kind of getting to experience what it's like to work at a co-op.
Hey everybody, I am Terry Craghead. Helped start this a few years ago. Fertile Ground is a recycling business, and our mission is to take waste and turn it into community wealth. And we do that through recycling, composting services, events. We also sell products from the things we recycle, like finished compost and mulch. But then we also sell like these eco products, like plates and cups and cutlery, things that events often use in restaurants. And then we have these erosion control products that are a byproduct of our compost process. But we are structured as a worker cooperative that's representative. So we have a board, and our board, anybody in the cooperative can once a year be elected to the board. Our board hires management, and then management hires workers. And so we kind of have this like triangle of checks and balances. Our members, our workers are kind of the base level of the cooperative. And so we have annual meetings that are worker meetings where we make major decisions. And then, from there, that's the time when we vote on new board members. And this is probably more info than you were asking, Ophelia, but we've kind of tried out a lot of different structures over our time, and we've been kind of developing it, and we're still like learning how to do our structure well. Like, it's not my forte to like work on structure. Don't ask anyone that I work with about that. We are just excited to be able to host an event like this for the first time, and just start the conversation about what is worker ownership.
I'm Erika. Erika Barker. Pronouns are she, her, just in case you're wondering. And I work at Gray Owl Coffee. I'm a worker owner there. We are a coffee shop and a in-house bakery as well in Norman. We've been a cooperative since 2021, but have actually existed since 2009. So to me, it feels like we're still a very young cooperative. We're still figuring a lot of things out. We have a pretty loose structure that is evolving all the time and changing basically as we speak. But we basically operate with there are kind of like workers and worker owners. That's at least how I like to refer to them. We also have different language in our bylaws than what we actually use on a daily basis. But basically, when you're hired at Gray Owl, you can be eligible to become a worker owner within the first 6 months that you're working there. And we are, kind of in a process of hopefully bringing new members into the cooperative soon, but have quite a lot of workers right now. And but we're also a very small organization. There are only 11 of us altogether. So we function with a pretty loose structure because we're quite a small cooperative also, but we are learning as we grow. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we're just gonna start off with some questions, and they're kind of directed at each person, but if anybody wants to answer any of these questions, you can. The first question is for Reagan. How are law firms usually structured, and what inspired All Rise to become a cooperative?
Thank you. So normally law firms are structured as PLLCs, so it's a limited liability company, but professional. So as attorneys, we are professionals in the state that we're barred in. And so that is how it normally works. Our law firm is also structured as a PLLC for formation purposes, but we also, as a legal co-op, we also have our bylaws written kind of similar to what you all were talking about. We have a board, and the patrons there's no real time frame to become a patron. Every attorney that joins is automatically admitted to the board, becomes a patron, and can attend board meetings and everything like that, which is very different from normal law firms. Normal law firms are also PLLCs, but they kind of have partners at the top, and then they have associates at the bottom, where the partners are the ones making all the decisions for the law firm. They're the ones getting clients. They're responsible for collecting money and distributing money to the associates. The associates are the ones that they're just kind of the ones that come in and do all the work for the law firm. And so it's a little bit of a different type of a situation, because since I am a newer attorney, nobody's really my boss, and they don't really like to be called my boss because that's not how we're structured. But we have formed sort of a semi-partner associate relationship, just simply because they have more experience than I do, and they're able to kind of guide me. But all of us, we're all independent, we're all a patron, we all can make our own decisions at the end of the day.
That's okay.
I was like, keep it going.
So that's it's cool to know. Erika, so Gray Owl is a beloved small business and a community compost hub for fertile ground in Norman. How do you find the cooperative structure to be helpful towards community building?
So I think how a traditional coffee shop, any sort of restaurant business is run is usually there's an owner at the top, and they maybe own the business, might own the building that the business is in, and then there's usually a manager below them, and then there's workers below them. And how we work is not that. We just are all workers. So there is a small amount of management that happens in that there's a period of time when workers who we've just hired don't know as much about how things work and are still in the training phase, essentially. And so that's why we have this sort of 6-month eligibility period, or probationary is not the right word, but I think we call it in our bylaws a provisional member. So there's someone who's they're not yet in the co-op, but they are eligible to be in the co-op. And I'm losing my train of thought, but basically, because all of the people who work at Grail also have the potential to be owners, and a good number of the people who do work at Grail are owners, those are the people that our community sees every day. We're extremely front-facing owners. In most businesses, you're just not going to see the owner most of the time. You're going to see the manager a lot of the time, if you are going to see anyone who has any decision-making power. And I think that having the people who also have the decision-making power on the floor doing not just doing the dirty jobs and the serving jobs and the everything jobs, I think it just creates a really different vibe. And I think that it also creates a lot of sort of authenticity in our space. I think we have we're very lucky that we have a lot of regular customers. I see a lot of people every single day who are just community members who come to the coffee shop, and they see me 4 to 5 times a week as well, because that's how much I'm working. And they know that if they have a problem, they know who to come to, and they also have a real relationship with me because I'm the person making their coffee every day. Also, I think you just feel differently when you own the place that you work. You feel differently when you have a say in your work. So even if you're not an owner, but you are a worker, like, you still have much more power than you would normally have, and you're hopefully going to be a lot more involved in making the business run and making it fun and things like that. Like, actually, my coworker Will, who's here today, he made our most recent seasonal syrup, and he completely was like, I think we need to have rose syrup, and then he made the recipe himself, and we just as a group approved it, and it's been really popular. And I think that when you get to do that kind of creative work, it makes you feel different about coming to work every day. Like, you just don't, there's a little bit more excitement, a little bit more ownership over what's happening, and you get to more directly see the impact of you working on something rather than it coming from oh, my manager decided on what the menu is and I'm just a cog in the machine having to output it. Yeah.
That was awesome. Thank you. Terry, what was your motivation to make Fertile Ground into a cooperative?
Okay, so I think I had a convergence of things happening in my life, but I had an interest in doing something about income inequality, social inequality. I was like, man, the social safety nets that we have in the US suck. I was a mental health case manager, and I was helping people I was signing people up for, helping people apply for Social Security who were disabled, but couldn't advocate for themselves and follow through with the long process. And I just got really frustrated with that whole system. And I was kind of at the same time taking this master's program, and it was a master's in urban studies, but it was kind of in economic development. It was kind of what I was interested in. I learned about cooperatives as kind of alternative economic development strategies, so that instead of just oh, let's put a box store on the corner that creates 10 jobs and then siphons the profit out of state and out of our city, what if we focus on a way of building businesses where the people that work in the community, they own the thing, and then they get a cut of the profit and control of the entity. That would seems like a much more resilient type of economic development. And so we need to have workplaces where people have economic democracy. And so for me, it was kind of that passion of things suck. And I was also meeting a bunch of people with what became Commonwealth Urban Farms. We were doing this composting project for the first year of Commonwealth, where we were just trying to build up soil. And it was oh, here's a business idea. We're all volunteering, and it's taking a lot of our time. We all have rent to pay and kids to feed, and volunteering is cool, but when you're young and you don't have passive income, it kind of sucks to have to bear the burden of something that shouldn't be a volunteer thing. It should be, even though it's good for the community, we should get paid for our time. And so that was kind of the convergence for me. Yeah, let's do this.
Awesome, thank you. We're gonna switch over to an audience question and then go back to the other questions. So I'm not sure who sent this in, but does the process of becoming a co-op require a lot of money? Any takers on that one? Yeah.
I think yes and no. We used a lot of different funding methods for becoming cooperative. We were lucky that we inherited a business that was already fairly successful and had a lot of community buy-in already. We became a cooperative right at the end of the pandemic, or the beginning of the end of the pandemic, and we had seen a lot of community support, so we kind of had an idea that there might be some community buy-in. Basically, the largest cost for us was just buying the business. It was $140,000 or something like that. is what the cost of the business was. And we actually applied for a business loan through another cooperative called Shared Capital Cooperative. They're based in Minnesota, I think. And they were extremely helpful. They're like really down to provide funding for cooperatives. And basically, like, you know, we do have a big loan. We have like a pretty significant loan. We also were able to make the main, like, or like at least half of the down payment for that loan using doing a GoFundMe campaign. So I think that's a really good method for if you're trying to convert a business into a cooperative and there's like some need for buy-in, like for the members to have buy-in. We were trying to structure our cooperative in such a way that it would have the lowest financial impact possible on its members, because to us, the riskiest part of becoming business owners at a pretty young age is that none of us had any capital. Like, none of us owned a home or anything like that. And we wanted the risk to remain really low so that people could easily join the cooperative and then not be screwed over if the business failed. So how we're also structured is that, like, if our business does fail, Shared Capital Cooperative will just own our business. None of us personally are going to be hurt by it, besides the fact that we just won't have jobs anymore. The other thing, though, that I think was surprising to me is that actually the cost of like starting a business, like in terms of buying the title and stuff like that, is pretty low and pretty small. So I think just the part of starting a business, that's the part that's most expensive, I think, in joining a cooperative. But it also, if you have a lot of people, we had like 6 people when we first started. If you have a lot of people, then there's a lot of people to share in smaller amounts of buy-in. Like most of my coworkers, their initial like investment, because SCC wanted us to also have wanted us to show that we cared about the business by investing our own personal money as well. Most of us only invested like $2,000, so pretty small amount. Yeah.
We were like a grassroots business that did not have a business plan. And if we had, the idea of what we are now, like in the early days, we probably wouldn't exist, but we kind of like steadily grew. But we had a similar idea. We just copying off of other cooperatives around the country. We're like, okay, we need to do this, follow this buy-in procedure where the workers that join, initially, I think, the very first buy-in, when there were 3 of us at the beginning, was like $150. And that was really just the amount of money we needed to file with the state incorporation and a few other minor costs. Over the years, we like established that, okay, we're gonna have a somewhat meaningful buy-in so that the workers feel like it's an important enough thing to like stick around for. And so it's $2,000 to buy into the cooperative. We also copied the model of, in terms of like financing the business, we copied the model of Equal Exchange, which is a coffee roaster in the Northeast in Boston. They popularized this like preferred share offering, like setting up another class of members within the cooperative. So we have the worker owners as kind of like our class A members, and they have all the voting rights in the cooperative. Traditionally, in a pure worker cooperative, then they would just share in the profit, the workers, based on the amount of business they do with the cooperative. And in a worker cooperative, that means basically the amount of labor, how many hours you work, your percentage of the hours worked is how the profit gets divided. But in this other model, it's like, well, you need financing, and sometimes it's hard to get debt financing if you don't have capital or whatever. Like financing is a big issue to touch on, but we were like, we need some equity financing, and we liked this idea that Equal Exchange popularized with setting up a second class of non-voting preferred shareholders, and we offer them a target dividend of 5% of the amount that they invest, and so that gives us, early in the business, flexibility to not have to be paying, when you're buying a new business or like a pre-existing business, you have cash flow. You know, but if you're starting something new, you have to think about cash flow. Like, can we even afford, you know, to basically pay our mortgage next month? You know, that's difficult, and so that's what equity's a little bit more flexible. So that's the only thing I would add is like there are a lot of different like ways of financing new ideas, but you need to have an idea that's a real business. Like just being a worker cooperative isn't a business. Like you've got to have something that brings value to the community that people want, that they're going to pay you, and that you'll be able to like ultimately like quit your job and go and do for real and rely on the income.
Well, for us, it was a little bit different because I think we necessarily started it as just a business, so we just had the cost of starting that business. For law firms specifically, we were a little bit different because when we started, it was just getting clients for us. That was our biggest concern. And because we don't have a warehouse like this, we don't provide products, we're just providing legal advice and you know, documents that we just draft up and provide. But so for us, it wasn't necessarily a big expense going forward or going startup, but I would say going forward, it was a little bit difficult because we were still looking for, as we were trying to grow our client base, we're still looking for income for all of the worker patrons at the firm. So that was our struggle.
Okay, next question is for Reagan. How does the cooperative structure of All Rise resonate with your clients?
So I think it does resonate with our clients because everybody that we talk to about it, they always seem interested. They always want to know more about the legal cooperative. And I think that the clientele that we serve is maybe a little bit different than some that the larger law firms would go after. We are really focused on individuals, and we also we practice federal Indian law and civil litigation. So with that, with trying to serve tribal nations around the state, our focus is helping instead of actually just what can they do for us, it's what can we do for them. And so I think that as far as our clients, they all appreciate what we do for them, and they all seem interested in the fact that we're different, we're structured differently, and all of us are able to work on projects equally that they assign to.
Do you feel like you have to explain it to them a lot, or
No, not really. I think once we start saying like we're a legal co-op and this is kind of what we do, they get it pretty quickly. I mean, there's not too many questions, I don't think, other than the initial.
Yeah.
Okay, Erika, how does the cooperative structure of Gray Owl inspire the team to own their piece of the business? Can you give examples of individual beings motivated in the creativity and customer service, which you kind of already did, but I think you have something else to add.
I think I touched a little bit on that with just like even getting like worker buy-in and like worker participation with like literally anyone who works at Gray Owl being able to propose something. I think that's like 100% due to the cooperative structure. Then again, like Gray Owl always traditionally had a pretty like open-minded approach to things. Like, you know, workers were often the ones who were proposing events and stuff like that. So I think we were just kind of embracing that culture that sort of already existed. But I think it's like, it is kind of special to be able to like notice the people who are on our team and do things based on what they actually want to do. Like we've many times had people who are like hosting a book club at Gray Owl because like a worker wants to do a book club there, or we have music events because we have musicians on our team. On my end, I also like do drawing and illustration, so I've like gotten to make a lot of our merch, and that's been really like rewarding for me, and also just like a good I'm like a kind of self-taught artist, so it's like a good avenue for me to be able to experiment with stuff in a sort of low stakes way. I think that's like kind of what I want the co-op to be ultimately, is like a way for people to find lower stakes opportunities for the things that they want out of life. Yeah.
Okay, next question for Terry. How has the cooperative structure helped Fertile Ground with employee turnover?
So yeah, I guess I'd say for the people, like in the early days of Fertile Ground, it was friends that were joining and working. And so I knew people that I was working with like before they started working here. I'd say for the people, we have a 1 year, what do we call it, candidacy period. So people that come on as new workers, we just want to take it very seriously, just because it is a meaningful thing to have a say and a share of the profit of the entity. And I think within the last year, we've started to experience some turnover with new drivers, where we're hiring for a position in a way that we've never hired before. We're like putting out calls for CDL drivers. And I think it might be very specific to that, like people have one thing in mind when they're applying for CDL jobs, a certain idea of a job, and the like worker-owned aspect of the business is really kind of like low tier when they're like looking for the work. So I don't know, it's mixed. For the people that have stayed around beyond a year and become members, I feel like there has been, like this genuine like buy-in and joy of working together. But yeah, during the candidacy period, we have seen people come and go. Unfortunately, it's been frustrating. I don't know, do you have anything to say about it?
I don't know. I feel bad for like all the extra work that has to be done by the other worker owners, because of the turnover with drivers. But other than that, the drivers are. Maybe it's just because they're not like in here with us all the time. They're on the road a lot. That could be a factor in it. They don't get to buy into it as much. But I've been here for 2 years, and I'm pretty bought in. This is probably the second longest job I've ever held. I have commitment issues. Anyways, on to the next question. Let's see, we'll do another audience question. What current need or / want does the co-op need to take on its current biggest challenge? So think of your biggest challenge currently, and what do y'all need? You need a moment to think.
I can start.
Okay.
Do you have an idea?
You probably talk, but you go ahead. Okay, share your thoughts.
There's so many needs. We need so much money. Let's see. I'd say like we've been trying to build like a sales force. That's kind of one of the things we've neglected most of our history is having boots on the ground, like out there knocking doors, trying to sell the things that we're doing. Like you just got to have people out there knocking on businesses, doors to get new commercial recycling and composting customers. So that just having some free working capital, it's always this like, it's a tough decision to decide like, okay, are we gonna go in debt? Are we gonna go, make this big splurge to do this activity, we're hoping that it pays off, but not knowing it's gonna pay off. And none of us are business majors or MBAs in Fertile Ground, and so we're all kind of like feeling our way through, like trying to decide like what's the best business decision here. But that's the one that comes to mind immediately. Related to like the waste industry, because it's like all other industries. Capitalism is just like, it's monopolies. It's just like people with wealth accumulate wealth, and that's just like that's just what happens. And it's not inevitable, but that's what tends to happen in human society. It's just like people with resources just keep getting more and more resources. And yeah, like Erika was saying earlier, we exist in this system where we have to have a viable business that's competing with these people. And you know, Walmart's the famous example where they would come into a small town in the early days, drop the prices really low, put their competitors out of business, and then everybody's like, once Walmart's the only choice, then they raise the prices back up. You know, Amazon's done that recently. We've all seen that. So like that happens in all sectors. But this thought I was having was like the potential of cooperatives, worker-owned cooperatives in particular, is that we're building this like connective tissue in our culture that I think is going to outperform the market. I mean, it's going to be a competitive thing still. Like we still have to battle these market forces, but because we're so invested in our community, you know, like a monopoly waste management company, you know, that's like based in Toronto or what, I don't even know where they're based, Houston or something. They don't have a lot of like local buy-in, you know, like, but the potential for what we're doing is like, yeah, we're taking care of, you know, our place, we're taking care of each other, and we're connecting with our customers in a way that's just like superior and provides, it's just naturally better service. And so it's a superior product. We have to work at it, it's not guaranteed, but like, I think that's when people ask, you know, questions about how in the world could you possibly compete? I think community is like the thing that puts us above the market.
Okay, that's it for the questions that we wrote up, but these are some more audience questions. And then if you guys have anything, feel free to chime in. So this is actually a long comment. Hold on. It says, I like the idea that those involved make decisions about their business. I know that you all have figured this out. I'm curious as to how a large group of people who don't necessarily have a business background end up making good business decisions. Related, what kind of time commitment or to decision making are members expected to make? A little long. Yeah.
So for us, the decision-making process really comes from our board meetings. So we have bi-monthly board meetings where we meet every other week to discuss, we go over business ideas, and then we go over our caseloads and kind of bounce ideas off of each other if we're drafting or anything like that. So for us, we've been given like tasks of, oh, we're going to rewrite our bylaws, and so all of us are kind of expected that just by the next meeting that we would be ready to discuss those, because we're not going to give it out the one day and then expect it the very next day. So that's how we have it structured, and we kind of keep it regular like that. We keep it every couple of weeks we discuss business. And so we actually just had a board meeting today where we started off, and for the first hour it was a 2-hour meeting, which is kind of just to give an idea of an indication of how long it may take you all. But we started off the first hour, we discussed business topics and how maybe we wanted to restructure some things for our firm going forward. And then the second hour we discuss our cases. So there is some outside work for us, and there's some every couple of weeks we will do meetings to bring topics up. But outside of that, it hasn't been overly strenuous for us.
Well, I definitely recommend a good CPA. Our accountant, we throw a lot of ideas off of him and like get numbers from him really regularly, and just having an accountant that you trust is a really good way to make decent decisions, and listening to him actually, and not just getting the advice but then ignoring it. I do think, kind of related to what I was saying before, there's also this, I think, belief that business owners know what they're doing or are good at what they're doing. They're not. a lot of the time. A lot of the time they don't really, they just don't really know what they're doing any more than anyone else is. We're all kind of like, you know, a lot of businesses are able to run just because the people who own them have a lot of money, not because they're necessarily making sound financial decisions. So some of it is just simple math also, just literally like seeing I need this many inputs to get this kind of output, and if I don't have those inputs, then I'm not going to be able to pay people, you know, that kind of thing. So I think it's like not exactly rocket science, at least in my experience. I, you know, just have a bachelor's degree in sociology and anthropology. I don't have a business degree or anything like that. But I also think it's kind of important to dispel those myths about businesses and how businesses run and making sound financial decisions, because I do think that this should be like cooperatives are something people should do. And I think the more people like realize that it's something that's available to them, and not just because they're like special, but because they're just a person, the more people are going to be able to do it. And I think that would be the thing. Is there a second part to the question?
What kind of commitment to decision making?
Time decisions, yeah. So there's like, I would say it kind of depends. We only meet once a month. It wouldn't be bad if we met more, but we do only meet once a month, and we usually try to keep our meetings to like an hour to 2 hours. And there are lots of other tasks. There's always more things you could be doing, but we also, because there have been traditionally enough of us to like spread the labor fairly evenly, we all usually get weekends. And I don't think that that's something that a lot of like traditional business owners necessarily get. So I think that that's like a benefit of cooperatives, is that hopefully there are enough people to do all the work, and then you can have a slightly better work-life balance in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you said it. Like, if you've got a professional or two in your corner, like an attorney or CPA that can help provide, you know, decent advice. You know, we've also considered the idea of having like a community advisory board. You know, as a worker-owned cooperative, it's kind of a social enterprise trying to do something good in the community. Like, you know, look for mentors and look for people that, you know, might willingly like volunteer information and advice. And then for our decision-making process, like as a representative, you know, structure, our board meets monthly. Sometimes we push our meetings, and then we have our annual meeting where the big major changes are made. But that structure was born out of people not wanting to attend board meetings. Like early on, some of our first drivers were like, I like having a job, but I don't want to come to meetings all the time. I'm not interested. And we were like, okay, well,
How can we still get
how? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's different people are in different paths of life, and trying to make it work for everybody. And it's really kind of how our structure has evolved. So.
Sophia, I want to add something to that.
Sure. This is Courtney, everybody. She's also a worker owner at Fertile Ground.
Just something I didn't want to like not mention is I feel like yes, it is very helpful to have those professionals that have like the education to help us make big business decisions. But I also think a strength that we have in worker ownership is that we are on the ground with our people, seeing what's happening day to day. And I think that's something that often gets missed in corporate business structures, is that the CEO is so far separated from what's happening on the ground that they miss a lot of important decisions that could help the company grow or operate better, because they're not on the ground seeing what's really happening. So I feel like in that way we have a strength in that. So just didn't want to miss that point.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Courtney. Okay, last question for the audience, the ones that submitted. What are the pros and cons of incorporating as a corporation versus a limited under Oklahoma law? Cooperative, sorry.
So I feel like my advice would just be to look at what each one offers and then what your goals are as a cooperative and just see which one would fit your situation better. I can't exactly say as to why we went with as a legal cooperative as opposed to the other option, but I do know that I think that at the end of the day, both of them are going to be cooperative structures, which is however you want to structure it is the best way to structure it for your patrons.
Okay, so I want to start off. I forgot to say, we're talking about worker-owned cooperatives, and there are many types of cooperatives. You all know what credit unions are. They're a cooperative, like a banking system cooperative. There's electric cooperatives, there's farmer cooperatives. A lot of the cooperative corporations, a lot of the farmer cooperatives, for example, are set up as cooperative corporations. And to my knowledge, each state has different rules for what the different entities mean, different things that you have to do to keep the different statuses. And then there are different tax implications that are involved for different types of entities. I know in Oklahoma, one of the reasons I bypassed a cooperative corporation was because you're limited on the type of financing. The equity can only come from the members. That's just baked into the Oklahoma cooperative statute. In 2009, there was this Uniform Limited Cooperative Act that went around to multiple states. Somebody advocated, I don't know who was behind it, but there were 9 states, and Oklahoma was one of them, that started this new limited cooperative association, which is kind of a hybrid of a corporation and an LLC. And so it retains a lot of the cooperative benefits, but it allows you to accept investment from non patron members. And so it was just a little bit more flexibility. But in a lot of other states, a lot of worker-owned cooperatives are organized as limited liability companies, LLCs. But there are a few resources. I don't know if your firm was ever interested in becoming a resource for our burgeoning cooperative structure. That's been one of the things that's been a struggle for us, is getting good legal advice. It's the attorneys that know this stuff don't live here. They're from out of state, the ones that specialize in it. And so then they have to come and learn all of our laws. But in Colorado, there's a guy named Jason Weiner, I don't know, Weiner. He has a law firm that specializes in helping cooperatives, and he has a lot of good information on his website. But I'm going to stop there.
We're an LLC, a limited liability company, just because when we first started, at least, we were we don't know what this is going to look like down the line. We don't want to limit ourselves by choosing one legal entity over a different legal entity, so we just went with the most flexible option, which was LLC for us. But part of that is also, lack of resources. There's just it is so exciting that there are enough people to talk on a panel in our area about cooperatives, because it felt like there was literally nothing in 2021, which is not exactly true, but just it's been hard to connect people to resources and get all of us knowing about each other. We have now reached out to All Rise and gotten some legal consulting from them. We've talked to Fertile Ground as well, but having a little bit more of an ecosystem and some peer help is definitely something that I think our community needs. So exciting.
Okay, that's it for the question. I wanted to ask a question to the audience. Does anybody here work in a cooperative? Raise your hand. Yeah. Perfect. Have you ever worked in one before? No? Back there? What did you do, sir?
Oh, I was, for a brief while, I was involved with Fertile Ground earlier.
Oh, okay.
But
Sorry.
I didn't stick around.
Gotcha.
Too many meetings.
Yeah. Okay. So, wait, I was gonna ask. Oh, does anybody else have any questions, additional questions for the panelists? Yes, in the back.
Hello. I'm gonna have
want to chime in on
You
that?
said the economic models are what?
Yeah, just like how it works economically for everybody compared to others.
For the workers.
So are you talking about the Oklahoma Food Cooperative?
No, I would belong to City Co-op, obviously.
Okay. Like locally, that was kind of the first cooperative I was a member of, and it was I was a consumer member. There are consumer cooperatives like REI where you can purchase a membership share. That's what a lot of food cooperatives are, consumer cooperatives. Oklahoma Food Cooperative was a hybrid. It was a producer-consumer cooperative, but it wasn't a worker cooperative. I eventually started working there, and I was like, man, it would be cool if we had a say in this thing, but it's like, it's not a worker cooperative, so it's kind of bad pay. Okay, so the economic model, I'm gonna stop talking.
No, you're doing great, Terry. You're doing great. I think that the idea of like, so basically like a consumer co-op is something where the consumers get a small portion of the dividends at the end of the year, I guess. Whereas like what differentiates a worker cooperative is that you're not only getting dividends, but you're also participating in decision-making processes, right? So I guess there's a lot more wealth sharing in a worker cooperative as well. Like even if you're not in our cooperative, for instance, even if you're not like an owner, we mostly push our dividends towards wages. So we're still doing wealth sharing in that like anytime there's surplus money at the end of the year, which is what dividends are, it's like what what's left over when you've paid all your taxes and stuff like that. We put that towards wages anyway. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but just trying to like differentiate between the different types, because it is pretty confusing that like something like there are lots of grocery store co-ops and those are called co-ops, but it's a different kind of co-op than what we're talking about, which is a worker co-op.
Any other questions? Right here.
So, this is a question for you, Reagan, because I have as little to do with lawyers as I can. But I don't know how a law firm works, much less a co-op law firm. And you might have explained this at the beginning, but it probably went right by me. But like, so you've got these lawyers and part of the firm, and then you all get clients, and then you put what you get paid into a big fund, and then you get your salaries from that, or how does, I'm just trying to figure out how it works with the cooperative.
I can explain that, yeah. So, thanks. So it is, and that's why I didn't say anything on the last question, because we don't really necessarily do, we share work, but we don't share funds. So how it works for us is, and really I think for me, especially because I'm newer, I will ask around the other attorneys at the firm. I'll ask them if they have any excess work that they can give to me. And so they will say, you can work on this client's assignment, for 2 hours or 4 hours or however long necessary to complete the assignment. And we have a billing software that I would, if I worked 4 hours, I would put that into the billing software under that client's name. And at the end of the month, whenever we send out the firm bill to the clients and they pay, I would just collect my portion of what they paid to me. What the total they paid to us, I would collect my portion of it. And if all 6 of us worked on that client, we each would get whatever the hours were, the amount of hours it was that we worked for that client. Does that answer your question?
So you make decisions as a firm,
Yes.
but you get clients individually
Yes, yeah, that's correct. As a board, we make decisions for the future of our firm and kind of where we want to go. That even extends to if we want to accept clients or not. We will discuss them, and if the board says no to a client because of any particular reason, then we pass on those clients. But the work that we do individually would be, we would receive that as, I guess technically we just work at an hourly rate. So we don't get salaries. It's just whatever hours you work is the hours you get paid.
And I saw another question back here.
Thank you. My question was, you mentioned the other cooperatives in the area, the electrical, agricultural, and then the credit unions. Have you at all reached out to them for cooperation, or do they seem open to cooperate? Work together?
No, I haven't really. We haven't as a cooperative. In the early days, we wanted to bank with the credit union. I was personally banking with Reagan Credit Union, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll just ask them if they would let us set up a business bank account as a cooperative. I'm sure they'd be happy to have another cooperative. And they wouldn't let us set up a business banking account because they were like, oh, we don't do cooperatives. Like, you are a cooperative. I was like, you're literally a cooperative. How could you not consider letting us set up a bank account? And it was partially probably my inability to explain that we're just a business and we just organize a little bit differently. And probably dealing with someone with a little bit of inexperience, and his boss just didn't want to deal with the question or something. Probably wasn't like Weoki said, yeah, we hate co-ops. But really I don't know, I haven't had a lot of interaction with other cooperatives. Other types of cooperatives. Yeah.
No, I mean, us either. I mean, I know that Gray Owl did reach out to us, but I think that was maybe for legal services.
Yeah.
So I can't really say other than that. Have you?
I get the sense that people are kind of freaked out by worker cooperatives. I don't know. I mean, it could just be my own perception, but I don't necessarily feel like, as a business, we don't necessarily feel like we're a strong part of the more traditional business culture in Norman. And I think maybe that has something to do with it. I think also just there is I don't know. There are so many different kinds of co-ops, and they do work differently. So it's not necessarily something that breeds that. I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of us supporting an agricultural co-op or something like that. It sounds very cool. But I think also we're at least my presence here is in part to try to network and create a little bit more connection between co-ops, and definitely of different kinds as well.
Yeah, I think some of it's just the residue of these cooperatives were started 80 years ago, and so it's as generations have gone, people have kind of lost the plot. They don't really understand why they're called a co-op. I mean, businesses are started that use the name cooperative, and they're in no way a cooperative.
Right. Or collective.
Or a collective. Yeah.
Also doesn't mean anything.
People just hear the brand of co-op and they're like, oh, that sounds cool. I saw that in this city. That was cool. But farmer cooperatives, electric cooperatives, credit. I mean, all those big guys, they do so much business. There's so much money that moves through these entities, these structures, that really, we should start trying to build these connections and bridges. Yeah, they could be a huge resource.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, right here.
I had a couple of interconnected questions for All Rise. One was I was curious about what is your onboarding process for new attorneys? Just because I was curious, I've heard what Myrtle Brown and Gray Owl, I'm curious what the All Rise does. I'm also curious though for All Rise, do you have any non-attorney staff? And I know the legal issues for law firms have to be owned by attorneys, so how how do you treat your do you have non-attorney staff, and how does that work?
So yes, we do have they're legal secretaries. We have 2 at our firm. So in total, there's 6 attorneys and there's 2 legal secretaries. We treat them as employees of the business and not as board members, because I honestly think it's just for payroll purposes, because they don't do the same type of work we do, like you mentioned. And so we are dealing directly with the clients, and they are handling more so of administrative tasks, which couldn't do it without them, of course, but I think it's just the nature of the work is a little bit different. And so as such, they're treated as kind of regular employees, if you will. And the onboarding process for new attorneys is, we actually, before we hire anybody, we put it to a vote. So when I was hired, the 4 attorneys at the firm voted, and it unanimously approved me. We just hired a new attorney, and 5 of us voted unanimously, and we approved her. And they are joining the firm, the co-op, as a worker patron. So they're joining as a patron from day one, and from day one, they're hopping on board meetings, and they're part of the vote. They get a vote just right out of the gate.
One more question? Okay.
I'm curious, what kind of health insurance are you able to provide to your co-op workers and owners? And is there, Erika, like you mentioned, the lender in Minnesota and the lawyer in Colorado, is there a special, healthcare plan that serves co-ops? Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the first resource the only cooperative related resource is through the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. They don't offer traditional health insurance because it's complicated to do. State by state, there are different rules. But they can offer vision and dental insurance. And so if you're a member of the U.S. Federation, then you have access to those benefits, and they're pretty low cost. As far as health insurance, it's something that we've revisited multiple times over the years. And we've made decisions early on just purely, we don't bring in enough money to pay for health insurance. The Affordable Care Act has been around, and I think the decision that we've settled on within the last couple of years was, let's just pay ourselves more. We call it a quality of life bonus, to help pay for insurance. And it sucks because the system, basically we opted to pay tax on that money, rather than going through the federal system where you lose the individual subsidy that you get through the marketplace. We're let's let the federal government pay as much as possible towards our individual plans, and then we'll just pay ourselves a little bit more to help afford that. But we have had to pause that payment because things got so tight. We're like, ugh.
So would you rather start a new co-op, worker-owned co-op, reorganize an existing business as a worker-owned co-op, or organize a labor union?
I think they're definitely all different animals. I have actually benefited from attending workshops about labor organizing, in terms of just thinking about how to better work with people and how to better understand my own cooperative, because I think they are sort of, in some ways, they are kind of not really like a union, but kind of like a union, and they're a big organization that is about the benefits of workers. I think they're all potentially viable. It just depends on if you're talking about converting a business versus starting a new business, the cool thing about starting a new business with all as a cooperative is that presumably all the people who are doing that together are all like 100% on board with being a cooperative, and they're like, yeah, that's awesome, that's definitely what we're doing, and that will hopefully carry through to like ease in decision making and cohesion of the group and stuff like that. Whereas converting a business, you know, there were a couple people who, it was like 6 of us who were staff at our business when we decided to become a cooperative, and there were still a couple of people who were like, I don't want to do that. And I think in other businesses I've seen where workers have tried to start a cooperative to save the business, for instance, it does take buy-in from the owners. And we were lucky that we had buy-in, but I think that that's something that is not always the case.
So, like, yeah, I mean, when you're coming out of like industrial, you know, America, like labor movement is absolutely like vital and essential. Yeah, I think it deserves like a vast like majority of the energy and effort of like existing work and labor in large institutions. But I mean, there are people doing work like trying to convert grocery store employees, the USF. But there are people like locally trying to help smaller businesses unionize. The U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives, they've really pushed for conversions. Like they see the silver tsunami, a lot of baby boomers selling their businesses, like retiring, and there's this opportunity for the workers that have worked there for 20 years, 30 years, whatever, to like own the thing. And it's a much more efficient way. It's an easier way in the sense of like having that cash flow established in a pre-existing business. But there are the cultural drawbacks. Maybe people don't want to take on the responsibility. But I think there are, yeah, definitely lots of different ways that we can plug into the labor movement and support each other. There are even like large cooperative, like worker-owned cooperatives that have unions. The Cooperative Home Care Associates, I believe, is unionized there in New York. But at some point, you have like 1,000 employees in your worker cooperative. At some point, you do have a disconnect between the management and the workers, where you know your representative organization isn't representing you very well. So yeah, I think it's always worth considering like how are we structured? Are we really protecting the dignity and the voice of everyone that works in the thing?
Yeah, I wanted to just add that totally agree that really like we are like the tiniest baby thing of like trying to make capitalism slightly less terrible for people. Like we're literally just trying to make our own lives a little bit easier and hopefully workers' lives a little bit easier. And really like union organizing is where it's at, and that's like what we really, really need in this country. And I'm able to support that in like the tiniest way by like, because our business is like a semi-public space, and we don't have bosses. We are a space where people can come to do labor organizing. So like I know that there are people, like there were Starbucks workers who came and met at our coffee shop when they were trying to initiate the Starbucks union in our town. And like that's like the most valuable thing that we're doing, I think. And also like trying to work out some of the like kinks of of how to share power and how to more equitably distribute labor and things like that. Like that's kind of what I see a co-op as doing, as like trying to just experiment with some things, but I think still probably like unions are really important, and where, yeah, what should be getting our support, like absolutely.
Yeah, for us, I would say specifically starting a cooperative would be better or easier, simply because due to the nature of the legal business and attorneys as well. We were very fortunate that whenever we started it, all of us were on the same page, and I think that's something that certainly, I mean, they discussed. I mean, you have to have a team that is on the same page and has the same mindset and goals. And we've been fortunate that from day one, anybody that joins our co-op is of the mindset that they're in a co-op and not, converting a different type of a law firm that's not a cooperative and just a business forward model would be much more difficult to convince, and it would take, I think that would take more effort. But as opposed to us, where we're all aware that we're a co-op, we all wanted to be in a co-op, and as I mentioned earlier, it's difficult to it's difficult to get new attorney patrons on, but the ones that stay, we have a 100% retention rate, where nobody's going anywhere because that's what they wanted. And I think really it goes to making business decisions, as was one of the questions earlier, but if you have a group of people that you can really rely on that feel the same way as you do, then you can have those difficult business decisions and you can work together. And if somebody has an idea that how they want the business to go, or even if it's just an idea of maybe some thought they have, all of us work together on that idea to expand it and to implement it if it's possible. And I think that's really what makes a difference.
Thank you. Okay, that's it, but I'm gonna hand the mic back to these guys so they can share where you guys can find them online, and social media and all that kind of thing, or emails. You wanna share that information?
Sure. Yeah, you can visit our website. It's allrise.law, all one word, allrise. And you can also email me at my first name, Reagan, at allrise.law if you have any questions.
Same, yeah. Our domain is fertilegroundok.coop. You can just search Fertile Ground. And then my email address is terry@our domain. And then, yeah, I'm still using social media. I think my personal is just my name, Terry Craghead, and yeah, that's it.
We have a website, grayowlcoffee.com, but really probably the best way to get in touch with us is either our Instagram or email. Our email is grayowlcollective@gmail.com, and I'm gonna put out some cards and stickers on the table that people can take with them. One of my coworkers encouraged me to say that we are actually hiring, so if you're interested at all in trying to work at a cooperative coffee shop, then we are looking for part-time workers right now. So give us a let me know. I'm down to talk about it. But we're also just generally down to talk about things in person at our coffee shop in Norman as well.
All right, thank you guys for coming.